Hey everyone, we have a lot to talk about today because the weather is about to get really active across the United States. Multiple big storms are on the way, and over the next couple of weeks, we are expecting a major return of snowfall to areas like the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. There's even potential for a significant winter storm developing as we head into the middle of this week. But that's not all. Out on the West Coast, we are tracking a massive storm that could bring up to 150 inches of snow to the higher elevations of the Sierra Nevada. That's over 12 feet of snow, which is absolutely insane. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down everything you need to know about these upcoming winter storms, where they're heading, and what kind of impacts you can expect. First, let's talk about what's happening right now across the country. There's already a lot of moisture moving across the East Coast, bringing snow to parts of southern and central New England, as well as some heavy rainfall. The good news is that most of this is moving offshore, which means things are starting to clear out for the rest of the day. But don't get too comfortable because we already have another system on the way. A fast-moving Alberta Clipper is sweeping across the Midwest and will eventually move into the Northeast by Monday, bringing another round of snowfall. These types of systems usually don't produce huge amounts of snow, but they can still lead to a few inches of accumulation in some areas, making for tricky travel conditions. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Meanwhile, out west, things are looking wild. If you look at this huge system right here, this is an atmospheric river slamming into the west coast, and not just any atmospheric river. This is actually classified as a Category 4 event, which means it's one of the strongest we've seen this season. This system is absolutely dumping rain and snow across California, and the higher elevations of the Sierra Nevada could see up to 150 inches of snowfall. That is just an insane amount of snow piling up over the next several days. On top of that, heavy rainfall at lower elevations is going to lead to flooding concerns, and with the ground already saturated from previous storms, there's also an increased risk of mudslides. But the impact of this system isn't just going to stay on the West Coast. A piece of energy from this atmospheric river is going to break off and move eastward, and that's where things get really interesting. As we move into February, the overall weather pattern is shifting, and we're expecting a few more winter storms and possibly even an Arctic blast or two. But where these storms will hit is going to be different from what we saw in January. Right now, the polar jet stream is lifted far to the north, and that is allowing warm air to build across the southern United States. In fact, temperatures in Texas are already hitting the 80s, which is crazy for February. And this warm air isn't going anywhere. It's going to stick around through the rest of the week, keeping things unseasonably warm across the southern plains, the southeast, and even parts of the southwest. Now, you might be wondering what all of this means for winter storms. Well, as we head into the early to middle portion of the week, we're going to have at least one, if not multiple, troughs dipping down from Canada, and those will be the systems that trigger the next round of winter weather. Because the jet stream is staying so far north, most of the winter storm activity will be focused in the central and northern plains, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. That doesn't mean we won't see winter storms in other areas, but generally speaking, this is where the greatest risk will be over the next couple of weeks. Now let's talk about what's coming up this week. Over on the West Coast, the atmospheric river is going to continue dumping heavy precipitation, with several inches of rain and multiple feet of snow expected in the mountains. Meanwhile, back in the northern plains and the Midwest, that Alberta Clipper will be moving in tonight into Monday morning, bringing light to moderate snowfall across Michigan and eventually into the Northeast. This isn't going to be a blockbuster storm, but it will still bring enough snow to cause some travel headaches. But the big story comes as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday. This is when a piece of energy from the atmospheric river could break off and start moving eastward, potentially forming a much larger storm system in the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Northeast. Now, there's still a lot of uncertainty with this system, and the weather models are not in full agreement yet. The GFS model isn't showing a huge storm by Wednesday night, but the European model is painting a much more significant storm. Because of this model discrepancy, we don't have a clear picture yet of how much snow or ice this system will bring. What makes this storm even more interesting is that there could actually be a threat for severe weather as well. It's rare to see severe thunderstorms this far north in February, but if this system evolves the right way, we could see a risk of strong storms in areas like the Ohio Valley and even back toward the Mississippi River on Wednesday. That means we might have a setup where some areas are getting heavy snow and ice, while other areas are dealing with thunderstorms and possibly even tornadoes. As we head into Thursday, this system will push into the Northeast, and I think at this point, there's a growing chance that we could see a legitimate winter storm developing by the end of the week. And if the GFS model is correct, another storm system could develop right behind it, bringing additional snow around February 9th or 10th. Looking even further ahead, the models are showing the potential for a huge winter storm around February 12th, but forecasting that far out is tricky, so we'll have to wait and see how that evolves. For now, the focus is on the European model, which tends to be colder and snowier compared to other models. This winter, it has been more accurate in predicting cold and snowy weather than the GFS model, which traditionally has been more aggressive in predicting these conditions. However, this season, the GFS has been relatively reserved when it comes to forecasting major cold fronts, which often end up aligning more with the European model. There have been occasions where the European model has predicted colder conditions that didn't materialize, but generally it has shown a more reliable trend for snow and cold, particularly in the long term. Later today, snow is expected to fall across the mountainous areas out west, with the upper Midwest also seeing snowfall. These conditions will continue as we head into Sunday, February 2nd, where we can expect ongoing snow in the mountainous west, along with lighter snowfall in the Great Lakes region and parts of the Northeast, including areas in the northern Ohio Valley. This pattern looks set to continue for the next couple of weeks, with some regions seeing sustained snowfall. By Monday, February 3rd, we will see a warm-up in the east, a trend that will be noticeable by the afternoon. This will mark a shift toward a more zonal flow in the jet stream, meaning the weather will mostly move west to east without significant dips or ridges. However, this flow will push the jet stream farther north than usual, leading to a warmer than average pattern across the nation. Snowfall will remain a constant feature in the mountainous west, and the Great Lakes and upper Midwest will continue to experience some snow as well. As we look ahead to Tuesday, the weather doesn't change much. There's the potential for a developing western trough, which would bring precipitation and snowfall to the central and western parts of the country. A couple of low-pressure systems are expected to form, leading to more widespread snow for areas north of the jet stream, especially the mountains. Wednesday, February 5th could bring a 993 millibar low-pressure center over Nebraska, followed by significant snowfall in the mountains and northern plains. Meanwhile, a warm front developing to the east will bring a mix of snow, ice, and rain, depending on location. By Thursday, February 6th, conditions will turn warmer in the east as the warm front pushes up from the south, accompanied by a cold front moving in from the west. This will create the potential for thunderstorms and other stormy weather along the cold front, particularly in the southeastern states. However, this system's ability to bring a major cold down will depend on how the cold front interacts with the warm, humid air in place across the east. As we look into Friday, February 7th, the outlook is still somewhat uncertain. The cold air in the east won't be as harsh as some earlier predictions suggested, and we are likely to see a mild cool down instead of an extreme Arctic blast. Despite the ongoing snow and cold in the west, the east will remain relatively mild, with temperatures likely staying above freezing for much of the region. The Gulf Coast will likely remain warm and humid, with isolated thunderstorms possible. By Saturday, February 8th, we'll see a weak low-pressure system moving across the region, but conditions in the northeast will likely remain a bit unsettled. Snowfall will continue across the Midwest, Great Lakes, and upper Midwest, while the southern parts of the country could see scattered thunderstorms. There could be some mixing of rain and snow in the northeast, especially around New England, where precipitation may turn into rain as temperatures warm up. As we move towards Sunday, February 9th, another low-pressure system will develop near Toronto, bringing another round of snow to the northeast. This will be followed by residual rain and snow showers across parts of New York and New England, and possibly some ice in the mid-Atlantic. By the time the cold front moves through, we might see some residual snow showers in eastern Canada and the northeastern U.S., but this will likely be lighter compared to earlier storms. By Monday, February 11th, we're likely to see a new storm forming in the central U.S., bringing heavy snowfall to the Rockies, Plains, and parts of the Midwest. Meanwhile, the east will see warmer temperatures thanks to a continued zonal flow, with no significant troughs or ridges in the jet stream. This will bring some mild weather to the east, though the developing low-pressure system could still result in storms or severe weather, particularly in the southern states. Looking ahead to Wednesday, February 12th, the models predict another round of snow in the northeast, with a strong nor'easter bringing significant snow to New England. Meanwhile, the western U.S. will continue to see snowfall in the mountainous areas with more precipitation and cold expected in the coming days. By Thursday, February 13th, a much colder pattern will settle in, particularly in the eastern U.S., with the possibility of a major Arctic outbreak bringing below average temperatures to many regions. By the end of the forecast period, around February 16th, the European model predicts a more severe cold outbreak, with Arctic air plunging southward into the eastern U.S., potentially leading to widespread snowfall and much colder conditions. Meanwhile, the GFS model is showing a somewhat warmer outlook for the east, with less extreme cold. Overall, we're seeing a mix of snow and cold expected across many regions, but with differences in how extreme the cold will be, especially in the east. The European model seems to predict a more significant cold outbreak around mid-February, but there's still some uncertainty in the forecast. Regardless, it's shaping up to be a very active period of weather with plenty of snow and stormy conditions ahead, particularly in the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast.